Well, hello everyone. Thank you all for being here in chat. I'm wondering if you can tell me how my mic is sounding right now. Because we actually are having a little bit of a weather issue here. I'm talking thunder, lightning, like ooh, rain, storm, like a lot. It's been going on for hours. But we're gonna try to go through. If you hear it, please let me know in the chat. I'm trying to filter the background as best that I can. But thunder will be thunder. Can y'all hear me? Mousy says my mic is great. Liam, does that mean you cannot hear me? Thank you, Anna, and hello, and Rodin, and everyone who's here. Oh, thank you. Hey, always nice to see you. We're just getting started. Yes, Rodin, like the song, very very threatening. Although I'm not afraid of thunderstorms as long as there's not a lot of wind. The wind will unsettle me. I will admit that. Well, the thunder, mostly it's just going to be noise in the background, and also if the internet like wavers or goes out, so we have to keep paying attention to the mics and pay attention to the mics and pay attention to the signal going out because I'm going to be sharing a lot of stuff today. Hopefully, I'm glad you're here always. I know you've been so damn busy, Mrs. Cassandra. Nice to see you here. All my mods who came on a Monday when I don't normally stream. As you can see, I'm just stepping it up a little bit. There's a lot going on. Basically today, as you saw in the thumbnail, it's again about Masterson. But not about Masterson. But it's about Masterson. But then again, it's not about Masterson because there's just a lot going on, and I'm sure you've all seen it on the socials. We did say that Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis, along with 48 other people, sent letters to the judge, character letters to the judge because they knew he was already convicted as guilty, but Danny Masterson's sentencing needed to be put forward by Judge Almeida. Now, it is not uncommon to get character witnesses letters, right? I mean, doesn't every accused defendant get character witness letters? Everybody does, okay? It's not so unusual there. This is like a firestorm out here, though, because these letters, because of the people that worked with Danny, and because of the way the crime is, and I'll be honest, because of the response by some of the victims to the fact that letters were even written, it makes it quite the situation out there. And I don't want to stir trouble or cause anybody ruffled anything. I will say clearly to remind everyone that I do believe that the verdict that was rendered is appropriate. I do believe that Danny Masterson is guilty of these crimes. I support the victim's statements. I do not believe the victims organized a coup against Danny Masterson, nor do I think that this whole trial was a setup just to bash Scientology. And the reason I'm putting that statement out for you all to hear like that is so as we go forward with showing both sides of the situation, no one could misconstrue my intent, because that's what I see out there a lot in social media. People's intent gets twisted. People use the statements to their own purpose. They pick out words, they twist things, and they use things to their own purpose. Some of them thinking they're doing the right thing. Some of them thinking they're standing behind their beliefs and they're advocating, or they are, fighting the righteous fight. And they may be. My point today is going to be solidly that there's more information to be had, and that it is important before we weigh in and we start throwing accusations around or accusing people of things, or, ruining careers, reputations, and whatnot, from the smallest person talking about it to the biggest channels out there. Everybody's at risk of this. And it's important to weigh in on both sides. And when I say Lee on both sides, clearly, I don't mean that there's a right or a wrong. I'm just saying there's more information. That from the perspective of those that were in Danny's life after the crimes, that after he stopped committing those crimes and went forward, before the trial was even going, he's got a relationship with people, one-on-one. Could anyone say that his mother would not send a character letter in for him, or his brother, or his sister, or his wife? Of course they would, you know. Is it the fact that perhaps the two that are getting the biggest heat, the two that are having the biggest heat right now are Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis. And they worked with Danny Masterson on the 70s shows. And Ashton Kutcher has been known to be not only an acquaintance and worked with him and a co-actor on several shows. They are really tight, good friends. They take week-long on somewhat trips together. They've been together from the beginning as good friends in each other's lives. Of course he's going to do a character letter. Is it to the detriment of his career right now? Well, I don't know. Because like he is getting a lot of pushback and people are making a lot about stuff. But I want to remind everyone that the things that they are talking about are in the past and have been addressed already and weren't really being hidden. Now, I'm not going to admonish anybody for bringing it forward again. They can say what they want. I understand the anger that's out there. Okay. But let's get into the presentation just a little bit because there's a lot. There's a lot. Okay. Hey, I'll be sighing a lot, so sorry if you hear the heavy breathing. And no worries, Liam. I just wanted to make sure, because some people don't think there's two sides to this story. They say you're either for the victims or you're against them. I am for the victims. Everyone knows I believe those statements. Okay, everyone knows that I believe the words that they say, and I completely sympathize for what they're going through. I really do. Especially can put myself in the shoes of Jane Doe 3, Chrissy Carnell Bixler, who did not get a verdict for her, who told her story twice, who has been harassed unbelievably, whose children are in therapy, whose house was broken into, whose emails were violated, who received really awful ads taken out with her face and her phone number for services. She's been terrorized. And again, she did not get a verdict. And again, we have to remember that who put her name out there to begin with? Well, that would have been Danny Masterson way back in 2017, or was it 2019? Yeah. Her name's out there. She lets it. She's got a civil suit going right now against Danny Masterson and the church. Okay. Yep. Thank you very much, Marillion, and welcome. And there's the banner. Thanks for reminding me. But Bixler, as well as several of the Jane Does, all joined together and are civilly suing Danny Masterson. We're going to use a couple of names that have come out. Another Jane Doe is Naisha Taylor. She has actually allowed the use of her name. And the other Jane Doe is referred to as Jen B. We don't put her full name out. That's how she refers it. Okay, but this is the reason that they wanted to be Jane Does. Do you see what's going on out there? Do you see the name calling and the back and forth that is happening? Back and forth, back and forth. They, Jane Doe 1 and Jane Doe 2 have their verdict right now. They do. Danny Masterson has his sentence. And all this back and forth with all the channels and social media, the newspapers, all of these articles, everything, everybody at each other's throats. You're taking that away from them, their process of healing. Please be careful. I'm not saying you can't look into things. There are people out there now saying they're going to look into everything that they don't think maybe this should have even been brought to trial. That's a little too late to call me into this so many years later and say that. After 2 trials, there are posts out there saying that this trial wasn't even about Danny Masterson. It was about Scientology and that it was just bashing Scientology. That's a bit of twisting of the truth. Because if I recall, And those of you that have been here covering the trial with me, both trials, Judge Almeida did everything she could not to make it about Scientology. She did actually allow them to talk about why they didn't come forward sooner and the pressure that they were under. That part is about Scientology, but that existed, and it is relevant to these crimes. It is relevant to the situation that occurred. It is relevant to how they were able to use this particular law in California to bring the charges against Danny Masterson 20 years after. Because it was serial. There was more than one person involved, more than one event. And now they're saying that Judge Almeida went forward and gave him 30 years, and that's too much for this crime. But the actual sentencing guidelines in the statute he was tried with, that is the actual requirement, 15 to life. The only choice Judge Almeida has with whether it was 15 to life altogether for both crimes or one after the other. And she said that each Jane Doe deserved 15 years to life. And that's why he has 30 to life and will serve approximately 26 if he's a model prisoner and be eligible to apply for a parole. No guarantee that he will get it. You see, there's a lot of misinformation, which is why I'm doing this stream today. Because already over the weekend, the amount of misinformation I read was incredibly twisted. And I want to make sure it's on record, how he got charged. There's no farce in this. This is not a Me Too gone bad situation, in my humble opinion. And you all know I speak on that. You all know where I was with Amber Heard on that. You all know where I am on the Marilyn Manson case on that. You know I speak out for the men that are being charged erroneously. I have never said that Danny was against this trial. I said we needed a trial and we needed to hear from the witnesses. And I'll remind you, Danny never spoke for himself. In both trials, Danny nor his defense attorneys brought forth one single witness, not one, to counter the statements of the victims. Not one. So I say here, I think a verdict was reached, and I think that verdict is true. And anything I say afterwards does not contradict it. I still feel that there are more victims than just those that Danny committed the crime against. Because I do believe two things can be true at the same time. Danny could have been a loving wife, a loving husband to his wife, a good father to his child, and still be a serial rapist. Those two things can be true at the same time. So Bijou would write a letter of support for losing her husband, asking the court for leniency. Friends like Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis could also write letters saying that's not the person we knew. After all, he didn't attack them. It doesn't make it right. And I'm not saying they should not face the consequences of making those letters, because those weren't just letters of support. They were glowing terms of a person as if it was a whole different being. They really went far, but they were asked months ahead to talk about their personal relationship with Danny. And who are we to say that's not their relationship with Danny Masterson? Could he not be a friend to them and still be the monster behind the door? He absolutely could. Think about BTK, the serial killer. All those women and people who are dead. And he tortured and murdered them. And yet he was a good father. He raised a daughter, a fine daughter, who never knew anything about it, who didn't see the monster. That's what I want to talk about here today. The fact that two things can be true at the same time. And that because we support the victims does not mean that Ashton and Mila didn't have the right to make a statement, because they did. And they're being judged quite harshly for it, actually. And I can understand why. But we're going to talk about some. We're going to talk about more of that, because some of the stuff that they're getting charged for is like kind of, well, it's very convoluted. Let's just say that people are twisting things out and sensationalizing stuff, and because it is a sensational story, I'm not going to say it's not. I understand why they're making a lot of it the way that they are, because it is sensational. A lot of crap happened. It did. This is Ashton and Mila, which you may all already be familiar with. Okay. This was victim number 5. And the reason I'm going to bring her up, she was the fifth person to testify as to what happened to her in regards to Danny Masterson. Her claims were not charged in the indictment, and he was not on trial for what he did to her. But because the defense brought forward that the women were colluding, it made it so that the judge could actually allow testimony from other women who said, no, I had no contact with the 3 of them about this, but this happened to me too. Because they brought it through that they were making it up. Because the defense pushed so hard on the individual words of the 3 victims' statements with authorities, it allowed prosecution to bring forward the other names they had for the women who didn't want to go to trial, or that they didn't bring forward charges on, based on time, based on collaborating evidence, or etc. It was the prosecution's choice. This is Kathleen Jenkins. And Mila in Ashton's statements hurt her. Okay. And that's what I want to show here today, both sides. They have the right, but they'll have to face that regardless of them saying they didn't want to cause any damage to the victims have a right for how they feel too. So after the sentence, Kathleen put this, I believe it's her Instagram. This year, 2000, 23 years ago, I was a young, naive, bright-eyed, extremely happy girl who was just getting my feet wet in the film industry. Danny Masterson ripped my life to pieces when he drugged and forcibly raped me when he was filming in Toronto. Today, he was given 30 years to life, and maybe now I and his many other victims can finally start healing. I was disappointed I could not give an impact statement today, but I am honored to have been given the opportunity to testify at his trial and help convict him. And she thanked the incredible women who have come together to make justice a reality, and dedicated Los Angeles district attorneys, the judge, and the jury. This is a truly special day. She felt that the day of the sentencing. And the very next day, she is dismayed at what she's reading all over the place about people supporting him. Because, well, those letters, okay, are not normally published, are they? You guys get that, right? Those letters are not normally put out there, all right? They're not. So why does she have to see that people support him? Why is the pain being caused? Okay, that's what I want to, bring to light. Is that necessary? Y'all knew about the letters, and I know that, Megan Conniff is a legal advisor, and she felt it was in, I know why it's out there, because it was in the sentencing motion for leniency from the defense. Okay. And I've given you that link below. Okay. The defense's motion for leniency, which quotes from all the letters, needed to include the letters as evidence, okay, to it. And that is why they're all out, because you can have access to that. Okay. But here's the thing. One of the things being said by quite a few of the people supporting the victims, and also just supporting the process in general, as far as the legal case that I've been reporting on it all along. They have said that there was kind of like a media gentleman agreement not to produce them, and no one can find any record of it. Okay, but several of the victims are quite upset that the support letters are out there, and that this has become such a big deal. Okay, I do believe that just the fact that everything was being released may be why Chrissy, Jane Doe 3 herself, Chrissy Carnell Bixler, made the tweets and the Instagram post that she did, which was quite angry and quite accusatory and attacking Ashton. But it made people look at her, like, side eye her a little bit, But I understand why she's mad. I understand her anger. And I think any of us would be angry also. Part of the healing process when you are attacked like this, when you are a victim, part of the healing process is anger. Yep. Part of it is anger. So who can blame her? Juju says the victims could be upset that the conversation is no longer about the crime. And would we blame them? Exactly my point, Juju. I am mad about that also. It's no longer about the fact that they got justice and he's convicted. It's now people are looking at it like the trial never should have happened. And that should not happen. That is re-victimizing the victims again. And you know what? And yet everybody does have a right to look at things, but could you be careful about it, cautious about it? People are taking sides and saying things that are just absolutely atrocious. How they could say that this trial was only about Scientology, but they didn't follow it? They shouldn't be making those statements unless they actually followed that trial. Did Scientology get mentioned? Hell yeah. But did Scientology prevent the women from testifying? Did they try to? Did they try to keep them from reporting Danny Masterson? They made it through pressure and through policy a big deal. And all of these women left Scientology without their families and friends, left on their own to fight this alone. One of the Jane Does has no contact with her mother, who she was so close with, because she chose to report. They've lost careers. They've tried to move on. And those saying that he's receiving too harsh a statement, are they forgetting that victims of violent assault live with it every day? That even when the healing process is almost done, there's always something. And let's not also, to anyone who says that this sentence was too strict or that he shouldn't be getting so much for something that happened so long ago, I ask you, did he take accountability? Does leniency and forgiveness in moving forward starts with that? And where did he do anything but blame the victims? So don't say it was too harsh. Not when those women have to live with it every day. Every damn day. Not when you sat back and watched them get harassed and terrorized. The women's statements alone was just so hard to read. But let's get to the other part of what happened after the sentencing. This is from a Twitter account from Lauren Rock. She's actually quoting Christy Carnell-Bixler, because Christy Carnell-Bixler uses her Instagram to put all this out, and she uses stories, and stories only last 24 hours. So unless you saw it during that 24 hours and captured it, it's gone. Okay, there's no access to pull it, but people quoted it and reposted it. And I saw actual postings of her Instagram that were taken by others. And it is exactly what she said, but it was a little different in the post. It's in a couple of videos that I'm going to tell you about if you want to actually see the post and how she put it up. But these were her words, okay? This is from Lauren Rock, who's an advocate. Chrissy Carnell-Bixler, one of Danny Masterson's victims, slammed Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis. And these are Christy's words. She said, "Dear Ashton, I know the secrets your role model keeps for you, ones that would end you. Did you forget I was there? You were on speakerphone that night. You called Danny on February 22nd, 2001. I heard everything. I heard the plan. In my opinion, you're just as sick as your mentor. Dear Mila, I pray you begin to process what you experienced as a child on that set. You did interviews. Your old interviews are very telling. I encourage everyone to watch them and decide for yourself what you hear and see. Do so before they get scrubbed from the internet. I also know what happened in Toronto and after. Question: if that's what you view as a normal relationship with a big brother figure, then I feel very sad for you, and I hope you consider getting into therapy. You all must forget I was there the whole time, those first 5 years of the 70s show. I remember everything. Okay, this is the tweet that everybody is saying makes them think that perhaps when Danny came out and said, and his attorney said that Christie had organized everyone against Danny, it was language like this that made them side-eyed a little bit. Okay. I'm not saying she did, because I don't think she did. I want that clear out there. I do not think Christie Carnell Bixler organized the victims against Danny Masterson. I think they all had a story to tell, and I think she wanted hers out there too. Do I think she's angry? Yes. Do I think that this is pain that is speaking and she's attacking? Yes, I do. That's very attacking language. It's accusatory. She's angry, and she has a right to be. And she wants to know why people are supporting someone who did such horrible things against her. And is still an organization that is still to this day doing horrible things against her. There's anger there, but I don't blame her for it. Okay. I just hope that other people see the reason. You know, they're trying to say she's vindictive and attacking. And maybe she is. Maybe she is. But what she's saying here is true to some degree. But it also is inciting riot because a lot of it's been handled. She's talking about a day from February 21st in 2001. And for those of us who may not be familiar with what that actually entailed, it is about that. I don't want that. It is about it is about a young woman, Essie Wessler, who Ashton Kutcher was going to date. They were both single at the time. They knew each other. They had meant to go to a party together. He was supposed to meet her. She was killed by a serial killer. Okay. He knew her. But a serial killer named Gargiulo killed Ashley Elleron in 2001. The serial killer's name is Michael Gargiulo. He was tried and convicted of the murder. Ashton Kutcher actually gave testimony during that murder trial because, well, here's the story that's being told. And Ashton doesn't deny this anymore. Okay. This happened in 2001. He stepped forward with the police. But what happened on that night that Chrissy is referring to is Ashton went to pick her up. He was already late. He went and he looked through. He said he saw stains that he thought was like wine. That was his public statement at first. But what happened was he more than likely saw the body because he went back to his car, he got in it, and he called his agent. And I believe growing up in Scientology is the one who is saying, well, that was an hour long. And he's getting that information, as he admitted, everything from Chrissy Carnell Bixler. He says, I didn't break this story. I reported on it 7 months ago. I know of this story, but the details are all coming from Chrissy because she's the one who came forward and told everyone about it. And it's true. Okay. I'll show you another tweet after, but let me just tell you about the case of poor Ashley Elleron. She died. Ashton went into the car and called his agent or someone, his team. Okay. They even say the producer of the show that he was on at the time intervened. But he had conversations with people on what to do. And what he decided to do, and the plan that she's talking about, is being reported or stated as he just went to the party and he didn't call in the body. So there was a killer out there loose, and Ashley Elleron left undiscovered. And the next day he went to the police. But he went to the party that night first. And he left it for somebody else to discover that body. And what they're saying out there is that because of that, another woman died because they didn't start the investigation soon enough. But they really don't know that. We're only talking like a day here, an hour, whatever, however long before the body was discovered. But they're accusing Ashton Kutcher of discovering the body and then caring more about his career in 2001 than doing the right thing. And that Danny knew about it, and Christy was there when he called, and it was a plan that they all hatched together to cause him less problems, and it's coming back to slap him in the face. And that may all be true, that he did that. It's not denying. He testified for 40 minutes in court, all right? You know, they were young. They were 22 and 23 at the time. They had met like the year before, and they were single, so they decided to schedule their first date. Okay. Before the date, Kutcher was over at Christy Swanson's house. He was hanging out there. They were going too much. They were having drinks and all, and he was late. So he texted Aileen that he was going to be late. He was already late. She said she was going to go take a shower and blow dry her hair. She died in that towel coming out. They believe that she was killed just exiting the shower while she was getting ready to go out with Ashton Kutcher. She was attacked from behind. All of this is in the opening statements and in the testimony of the case. Kutcher says that he testified that the night that she was killed, that he arrived at her house between 10:30 and 10:45, and that he knocked on the door and no one answered. There were lights on, so he tried the door and it was locked. And he had assumed that she had left for the night because he was late and she was upset. And of course she would be late because he's late. He's like 2.5 hours to 2.5 and 45 minutes late. I mean, that's pretty late. And he just assumed she had gone out with her friend and bailed on the date. He said he peered into her window and thought her blood was red wine stains. He left. He saw what he thought was red wine spilled on the carpet, but it wasn't alarming because he knew there was a party there the night before, and it was pretty crazy. It was like a college party. So he really says he didn't think anything out of it. When he had heard about the crime the next day, his testimony is that he reached out to the police, which he did. His fingerprints were on the door, and he was freaking out that, he was going to be questioned. So he went in there and they said, he went in there to let me tell you what happened. He was never a suspect in the woman's death. Okay. All of this happened afterwards. Chrissy is the one saying that this phone call happened and all of this delay happened like this. He did testify in the charge, the case. He was never really accused of it, and they're now making accusations that other people died because he didn't come forward. Okay, I don't know if he knew she was dead or not. I don't know if he actually saw the body. I haven't seen any testimony from him that says that he did. I'm reading to you what he said in court. And I can't imagine that he would not tell the truth in court or to the police if he wanted to be cleared, okay? I mean, he went to the party. Maybe he used bad judgment, maybe. But we don't even know. But what they're accusing him of is being responsible for other murders. And I think that's going just a little too far. But I understand why they're upset. I mean, if Christy heard that conversation, I would be upset too, and I would want people to know about it. And it just kind of goes that, Ashton wrote this glowing letter, and why? Knowing he's going to get all this torn up. Knowing that he's going to get all tore up about it. Covering the backlash due to responses to Ash. Oh, that's right. Exactly. That's what we're covering. Thank you very much, Liam. Hi, Arnold. Nice to see you. Hey, Christola. Nice to see you too. Anyone else that I miss? Oh, Karen. Nice to see you. Anybody else that's coming that I miss? My apologies. You know, I'm happy that you're all here. But once I get talking and going through everything, it gets a little much. Hey, Ox. So that was the statement from Chrissy, and that's what she's referring to, that incident there. Now, in the description of my video, I did link the growing up in Scientology, Aaron, Aaron. I listed his video because 7 months ago he did do a deeper dive into all of this about this unfortunate murder, the young woman who died, Ashton Kutcher's involvement in it, and Chrissy's claims in regards to it. He did that video about 7 months ago and it's blowing up again. He's done several since. So I've linked one below, and the one below will link to all the others because he has in it the link to the main one from 7 months ago. Like the video that's down below is the recent one he did, and it does have a link in it to the one he did 7 months ago, so that you could keep it all together. But, they make a lot of back and forth. But he admits freely that he's getting his information from Chrissy. And I want all sides out there. I do. So this is actually Chrissy's Instagram for anybody who wants to follow there. Okay. And then we also have the Twitter of Nisha Trout, who is one of the other Jane Does. So she put her name out. Okay. And this is her Twitter. And you will find a lot on there in regards to the victims, because the victims are very upset about the letters being released. Especially in what I read on Nisha Trout, rather. What I read on Nisha Trout in regards to how the victims are feeling in regards to like there being some kind of agreement not to release these letters or whatever, or not to make a big deal, is very hurtful for them. Very, very hurtful. And so there's a little bit of pushback on those, especially Tony Ortega or Megan Kuno for doing it, and anybody else who's actually putting it. I'm sure it's all out there already. It is part of a legal filing. It's going to be hard to pull it back. But, at the same time, I don't think the majority are trying to hurt the victims. I know I'm not. I am not a rape apologist, nor am I re-victimizing these victims. I am in total support of them. And I think by supporting them, we can say that there's two sides of the story, but not the story of the crime. On the crime, I believe the victims 100%. And 100%, I think Danny Masterson's guilty. I have no doubt. I'm saying that people saying who they knew Danny to be, and they have a right in our justice system to send those letters. Look at Lori Vallow. People stood up for her too. Even Letitia Storch could have somebody send a letter in on her. Okay? Alex Murdaugh had people sending in letters of support from his family. His family sat there every day in total support of him during the murder trial. I'm just saying, look at both sides of it. Okay? By saying that he's my son, my brother, my sister, my friend, they're not saying he isn't guilty. Although I will admit that some of the letters were gaggingly positive about him being like the best human that ever walked the earth. I understand the anger that would make a victim feel. It made me angry. But I can't say they don't have the right to do it. And if we push back too hard in a specific way and too vengeful, it's only going to take away from us being right about it. It gives them more to say. Do you know what I mean? It gives them more to pick at about you. Now they're saying Chrissy's vengeful because she doesn't want to let it go because she's mad. And I don't think she's being vengeful. I think she has every right to be mad. Out of all the victims, she does not have a guilty verdict. And she's gone through some horrific stuff also. And for people to challenge it like it didn't exist. And I think that she's upset in particular about Ashton and Mila because they know her. They were there when Danny and her were dating all 6 years. It's personal. Do you see? Like it could be personal for her. Very. All right. So the next statement. There's this thread on Twitter. For those of you that had Twitter, I'm going to link you to this thread by Lisa Bartley. I'm going to read a few things from it. But because she actually has statements from all of the victims in regards to this, which I also want out there, not just what Mila and Ashton have said about it. They're horrified, that people think that they're going against the victims. Well, we're going to get to that in 1 second. I wanted to start with the victim statements because most people are talking about what Ashton and Mila had to say and not what the victims had to say. Most of the media, I'm talking about big media, is all about Ashton and Mila's video that they put out, their statement, their video statement. But nobody's talking about how it made the Jane Does feel. Okay. So Jane Doe 1 in particular, sent Lisa Bartley a statement that the video was incredibly, insanely insulting and hurtful, and that her hope is that they learn radical accountability and the importance of self-education to learn when to keep their privilege in check. Especially Ashton, who claims to work with victims of sex crimes with the nonprofit Thorn Foundation. And as to Mila, I can only think of Time's Up. And that was signed by Jane Doe 1. Now, the reason that I bring that up is because we have more information on that too, because, there's two sides to everything. And yes, it's true. Ashton Kushner started the Thorn Foundation quite some time ago with Demi Moore. And it is an advocacy for the digital responsibility and protection of children. He also spoke. I'm going to give you, there's a video linked in my description because he actually spoke for the Senate Foreign Relations Committee back in 2017 in February. And he gave testimony about modern slavery and human trafficking, speaking for equality and making sure that laws get passed to protect children, young adults, and everyone who is victim of these crimes, and promoting his organization of Thorn. We called them the Digital Defenders of Children. Okay. I gave you a link to that organization below, because what they can't say is that Ashton hasn't done victim advocacy, because he has. He's spoken to committees. He has a nonprofit organization that he was active in. It's not that he doesn't. Okay, it's not that he doesn't. I'm looking right now. Let me see. Okay, let me just see if I can find it. Oh, this is so slow going all the way down. Hold on. Let's see. Do you wonder if they know more than what they're letting on to? Ashton and Mila, I mean. Well, let's just take, for instance, one of the videos that's out that they're using to say that it was a predatory type situation. When they talk about Time's Up for Mila, they're talking about the fact that she hid her age. She was only 14 when she was on that show, that she was a minor. There's video of interviews that they gave where they Ashton and Mila will joke about the fact that Danny made a bet with Ashton about tongue kissing her as her first kiss when she was such a child. But my question is, did they know she was 14, or did they know she was just another teenager on the show with them? Because these guys were 18, 19, 21, different ages. Okay. There's another video of Ashton jokingly saying, I only did this video because the producer said that Mila would sit on my lap and I really like it. And he's acting like a goofy, stupid, objectifying young man that many do at that age. And I'm not saying that's right, because those kind of microaggressions lead to bad situations. I get that, and I'm not supporting that. But Mila's laughing and joking and doesn't look to be in any distress. And what I'm saying is that could be taken in two ways. But the only people who really know what was going on in all those situations are the people who were involved. Mila, Ashton, Danny, the producers. Okay. We're looking at it. We can make any assumption we want about it. All right. Mila says she lied about her age. Now, my question is, did they all know she was only 14? There is testimony there. I mean, not testimony, but there's video clips of Ashton saying that he's waiting for other girls to be of age that are 14 and 15. And he's labeled it that way. He says dumb stuff. We all say dumb stuff. Am I saying that he's right? No, but I'm not necessarily saying that he's a predator either. Okay. Or that he supports anyone who is a predator, or he supports the fact that anyone was attacked, because obviously he's not. Okay. This is big, and there's just two sides of it. And I realize that we're all confused, because even myself, although I believe that Ashton and Mila have a right to support their friend, I know that Danny's guilty, and I support the victims, and I understand how they feel. And I think Ashton and Mila really should have known better than to do this, that it was going to be a big thing. And then I ask you, is it all for just to make it a big thing? You know, is that how you're supposed to be helping the case, by making it a damn big thing? You know? Mm. It would not shock me if Ashton knew more than he is leading on. It wouldn't be, I would not be shocked either, because they are such good friends and they were such a part of each other's lives. It wasn't casual. It really wasn't. Ashton Kutcher and Danny Masterson. They also run in a circle with a different moral and ethical code than perhaps all of us follow. Exactly. Young, privileged males in Hollywood. And Danny Masterson, a Scientologist with no checks and balances. That's really all I need to say, right? Because look at how Danny, the culture that they led for him, let him get away with what he did. Hey, Enter. Like Michelle Duggar's letter of support for Dosh, who molested her own daughters. Exactly. Exactly. And people were upset at that too, but still, that's her right, right, Andrew? We do understand that it's upsetting, but it's her right. She knows her husband, not the abuser, right? And yet we look at it as the same. Yep. And thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Cassandra, so I didn't miss that question. I really appreciate it. All right, Tony, I'm sorry I'm late. I didn't get the notification. I'm sorry you didn't get a notification. YouTube does mess up quite a bit with that on and off. Also, I put the stream up late last night. I haven't even got tomorrow's up yet, so that one might be late too. Watch the Rosie O'Donnell clip with Ashton and Mila. They openly discuss the tongue kissing bet Ashton had with Danny and acknowledge Mila's age. Exactly. And that's on Twitter also. Arnold, thank you. That's what we're talking about. There are interviews out there, and they're joking about it and they're kidding about it. And she does not look traumatized. And that's the other thing, when people are saying, well, oh yeah, Mila, I hope you heal and this and that and due time's up. That's Mila's story to tell. If she doesn't feel that anything happened, then, you know, that would be up to her, right? I don't think they should weaponize it. You see, that's what I see going on here. Everybody weaponizing everybody else's stories and using them for their own agendas. Christola, the retrial, there's not a retrial on the Mastersons that I understand. He was sentenced, and what they're really upset about is these letters of support that Masterson received, that the judge received on behalf of Masterson, and that have been published because they were part of the defense's motion for leniency to the judge. They did not want the judge to do this, the two separate 15 to life, to run one after the other. They wanted them to run concurrent, so he only served 15. but they needed the judge to actually find precedent to do it. And when the judge addressed that motion, she said she didn't see the legal precedent to do it forward. It was 2 charges. The statute was pretty clear. They both deserved 15 to life. No, that might be about the Murdaugh trial, you might be thinking. This is about Masterson. What about the other 30-odd character references? Why are people pushing back on only Mila and Justin? I think because of their popularity, and I also think because of his actual advocacy with Thorne. That he's actually said that he's an advocate against sexual abuse, crime, the slavery, sex slave industry that's going on. He fights in the United States against it. And I think that those advocates and victims that he says he supports actually found it to be a slap in the face that he just wrote such a glowing letter to someone that was accused of such violent crimes against women. And in a way, that's reasonable. But those 30 letters, you're right. They came from people that worked for him. They came from his sisters, his brothers, his relatives, okay, his mother, from his in-laws, Billy Baldwin and China Phillips, okay. They came from big people in Hollywood that worked with him, producers. A lot spoke up for him. There were 50 letters on file, his mother. But who didn't write? Not everybody wrote letters. I mean, the rest of the cast of Scientology did not. I mean, of the 70s show, and one of them being a Scientologist, that would be Laura Prepon, okay? But Topher Grace and Willamire, they did not write letters. Neither did Laura Prepon, even though Danny Masterson brought her into Scientology. Now, I have to look at it a little closer, but they say Laura Prepon has left Scientology years ago. But there's no statement from her either way, nor Topher Grace. There are some memes out there saying he's finally cool because he didn't support Danny, which I thought was funny because you know how they always said he wasn't the cool one, right? So that's the joke about the 70s shows. Topher Grace being the nerd, Well, they say he finally reached cooldom because he didn't support Danny, and now he's a meme. Maybe they didn't because not that they think that he wasn't a good friend to them, or maybe they think that what he did was horrible. Maybe they just made a career choice. It's Hollywood after all. Speaking on this is actually could be a career killer or maker. It's kind of dangerous. Kind of it. Why would you want to? So maybe they just decided not to. Once he was convicted guilty, the family went forward and asked people to write letters, and a lot of them did. You have to remember that Carol Masterson is an agent in Hollywood. She's a casting agent. You get parts. She's an agent. She got connections all over. And Scientology is well connected in the industry, and a lot of Danny Masterson's friends are Scientologists, and Carol Masterson is too. She believes in Scientology. Was there pressure there? Maybe. It's up to every individual whether they write that letter or not when they're asked, I think this is true, Arnold. I think their apology video did more damage than good because it gave everybody something to pick on, like especially Mila. Like she looks really pissed off in that video, and people are really going for her hard. And then they pick on, Ashton's advocacy and all, And the fact that Ashton points out no one was supposed to see that letter. In other words, maybe he doesn't even believe it, then why write it? It kind of put doubt. It kind of gave everybody stuff to poke at. You know what I mean? Kind of made it worse. I agree. It definitely made it worse for them. Tony says, not just accused of non-consensual intimacy, he was found guilty. The letter was a smack in the face because it was asking for a lighter sentence for... I get that. And I understand why they're all upset. I'm just saying it's not that unusual for people to write letters. Okay, that letter was a lot. I will admit they were too glowing. Okay, but anyway, did I drop the? I think I did drop the link for Lisa. Hold on, let me make sure I do again because actually this is a much longer thread than what I posted here. This is only what Jane Doe one said. She also goes into Jane Doe 2 and Jane Doe 3, okay, and she has it all documented exactly what they said in the court during sentencing and then after, so that you can have it all documented should you choose. Okay. Let's go on to the next one. This was a post made by Chrissy Bixler, and this is the kind of language they were talking about. This is her accusation against Ashton Kutcher. Like we talked about what he said in the court case itself, in regards to the Gagliano serial killer trial, and about his girlfriend that was murdered. Well, she's saying that he was in his car for over an hour outside of Ashley's house, speaking with his manager about what to do to protect Ashton's career and reputation. He then called Danny. I heard the entire conversation. Law enforcement was and is aware that's what I'm saying is true. She's saying that she reported all this to law and that they know it's true. Okay. This is Ashley. That was Ashton at trial back in 2001. So Danny is convicted. Yes, he is. And he should be. We all heard the testimony. We're not going to go back over any of that. But I am curious on where you guys sit as far as the letters. I mean, are you as angry as some of these people out there? Do you feel they had a right? Yeah. Before I move on to another topic, because I do have one more that I want to go over today. Let me just look for some questions. Do we really think Ashton and Mila wrote those letters or just signed them? Well, if you see the video they did afterwards, they look wiped, like they haven't slept. They look like somebody used them both as punching bags. They look gutted. They look like two people that the worst thing that they thought could happen just happened. I don't think they thought the letters would be public. I do think they wrote them. They sound personal. The things Mila says about growing up around Danny and him being a mentor and somebody she looked up to. Ashton talking about the personal relationship they have and how he would let him watch his own children. I do think that there was some language added there that they were asked to put in. There's a lot of Scientology speak in there that others that are ex-Scientology pointed out. I'm no expert on that. But if they recognize it, I'm going to believe it. I'm going to say it's a good possibility it's there, that they did receive some coaching in what the letters needed to contain. But the simple fact is they agreed to do it. They're saying they agreed to do it. And so I don't really want to put a conspiracy out there that they did anything against their will. I think they knew when they signed. They just thought it would be private and that all this wouldn't come up. But it did. And it is. I can't trust anyone with a mustache like Ashton's in that court photo. Well, I like that mustache, but I don't like it. Ashton. Oh, the other picture. Yeah, that was a weird mustache. Ashton's was too thin. I thought you meant Danny's. Danny's is cool. Ashton's was way too thin. Yeah, Liam, he does look, well, he did look quite serious and haggard. He was quiet. This is from the court, from the sentencing. He did look quite haggard. Yeah. Juju says, I saw the video. I think they are gutted because they got rolled over by defense. They are realizing they are snowed yet again. I could agree with that 100%. I really think they thought it was private. I think they said, like, go, make it, you have to make it big because judges need big. Like, they don't need just like, oh, he was okay. Like, they need big. And I think that they were trying, they didn't see it becoming a big public thing, but still they have to own it because they did it. Yeah, they did. Absolutely. Possibly given an outline to follow. Yes, that's where I'm leaning because of some of the language, but yep, exactly. All right. So I don't see too many questions about that, but hopefully you all know I support those the witnesses. I just don't want everybody bashing on Chrissy like this based on the fact that she's so angry, because damn, doesn't she have a right to be a bit angry? And wouldn't we be too? I mean, honestly, think about it, people. Wouldn't you? Let me bring you to this guy. Not that I really want to talk about this guy. Okay, but this is Tom Massaro. Okay, and he and Sharon Applebaum were the attorneys prior to Philip Cohen and Sean Hawley. Okay, they were the attorneys who were in the beginning of the first trial. You know, the one where they tried to say they couldn't even go to court because the three women were Scientologists, and Scientologists make you sign an agreement that says you'll never speak against them, and even after you leave the church. And that went to the Supreme Court. That went to the Supreme Court, and they just they wouldn't hear it. But in order to defend it, Massaro and Applebaum are the ones who submitted as the attorneys for Danny Masterson the actual policies that were used against them to get Scientology testimony into the trial. You know, Scientology, of course, was upset about this, and then the lawyers tried to get all of that pulled, but you can't actually add it to evidence as one thing and then say that the prosecution isn't allowed to use it for something else. Once it's in evidence, it's in. And they used these policies that the women couldn't come forward because they had signed these agreements, even though they left the church. They put it forward into evidence to support that, to support those claims that they had no right to talk. And then when it got bounced back down, of course, the evidence is still in there to be used. And the prosecution used that to say there's a policy here about why the women didn't come forward. And that's how the women got to speak on how they were treated and how the pressure that they felt and the whole process of coming forward and why it took so long to prosecute Danny Masterson, which seems to be a bone of contention. But I was there for the whole thing. I watched it happen. I told you all about it from day one. We can go back. There's a playlist for this whole first trial and second trial and all the stuff that happened before. But that's how it played out. But here's the thing about Massaro and Applebaum. Okay. Massaro and Applebaum were the original attorneys for Danny Masterson in the rape trial. We remember the Vicky Podborisky scandal that happened right before we got the verdict. Prosecution received an email to where Vicky Podborisky, who is an attorney for Scientology, was complaining about the Masterson case and considering and had put a link in that thing. She was making massive complaints about the LAPD, people lying, people slamming Scientology, whatever. But when that link was clicked, it had confidential discovery from the case attached. And a whole big shebang happened because Vicky Podborisky is an attorney for Scientology. Scientology is not named in this case. This case is California versus Danny Masterson. Okay. It had 3 victims with the prosecution pressing charges against Danny Masterson, not Scientology. Scientology is not allowed to have the discovery of this case. However, the attorneys, Massaro and Applebaum, work on the civil case. Judge Almeida said she was going to investigate all of this, and she did. And then in June, she fined Massaro and Applebaum $950 each. And that figure is important because in California, you need to have a sanction of doing something wrong in the system as a lawyer of over $1,000 or more in order for a mandatory complaint to go into the board, the bar association. So she sanctioned them each for $950. But she said that she couldn't go further because the law wasn't on her side, because they did work for the other case. So they did have some entitlement to the information, and they already had the information from the first trial. And that is how Vicky Proboreski got it, because Scientology is named in the civil case, which makes Scientology's attorneys parties of privilege. Does that make sense? You could see it's very convoluted. The judge didn't like it because she said that was shady. It was shady. Okay. But there's no law. Like, I can't really say that you absolutely broke the law. It could be interpreted both ways, that they had a right to it. But I'm sanctioning you for playing dirty in my court. But there won't be any bar charges. But here's the thing. The day of sentencing, both Massarow and Applebaum were furious that they got sanctioned, and they were fighting it. They put appeals in June. They put appeals in to go against Almeida's judgment. But the night of the sentencing, they dropped them. They dropped both the appeals. They're accepting the sanctions for leaking discovery in the case, including information on the victims. You see, Judge Almeida was horrified because the new addresses of the Jane Does who had moved and everything, who some of the harassment had quieted down. Now all their contact information and everybody involved in the case, all of those addresses, phone numbers, contact, and statements were available to Scientology. And there was great concern that more fair game was going to happen, and probably is. But legally, there wasn't anything she could do. Well, that's the end on that one. But don't you think it's kind of funny they dropped their appeals on it? I wonder who advised them to drop those appeals. It's very curious to me. Very curious. Well, let me see what else we have here. There's a whole bunch of other videos I want to link for you too. All right. Just to show you that there's two sides to every story. All right. I also had a video from, who's this one? Okay. This video is from Colonel Kurtz. She's really upset that people were bashing Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis, because she believes, like I do, that, two things can be true at the same time. He could have been a friend and he's a serial rapist. They weren't saying that he wasn't. There was glowing letters, but she also, in her video, she talks about the language that Chrissy Bixler is using, and how angry it is, and it's making her look like someone who's being retaliatory. Okay. Colonel Kurtz has been an advocate for men's issues with Me Too. It's not the only thing that she does, but she's kind of known for it. And people are going to go for her no matter what, because if she even says she's looking at the case, which she says she is, which it's a shame that she waited till after to look at it, because now it's going to look, it just looks like you're digging after something after they get the victims have gotten their justice, And I just, I don't want anybody to have a bad look about it. I think she has a right to look at it if she wants, I really do. But at the same time, I don't want people picking at it and making the victims feel like their justice doesn't matter. Like, they went through all of this to get their verdict and to get a sentencing, and to have people decide, oh, we've got to open it all up again after 2 trials and all these years of harassment and being terrorized and trying to get it to go forward. It just too much. Now, that one's on the negative. And then the other one I have, let me just find it. It was Penguin Zero, which is Charlie Moist Critical. Okay. He came out in total support of the victims, saying, it was absolutely ridiculous that anybody would make these statements. And the link I did before that is actual Lauren Rock feed to her Twitter, because she has the videos, those old videos of the interviews that Arnold was mentioning about the lab and all of that, that, you know, those comments that were made. There's actual video evidence, and that's where it's coming from, these interviews, these clips. So that's the other link, because I want you to have everything, to have everything. Everything that I'm looking at that's making me feel the way I'm feeling. I want you all to have it too. Because I don't want it to be like I am trying to persuade anybody that it's a certain way. I just feel that everybody had a right to weigh in. And I don't necessarily feel that by making the statements, they're saying that the victims are wrong. But I do understand how it took away from their justice. I do. I do understand that this whole hullabaloo kind of taints what they've just accomplished as far as the healing process and moving forward, you know. Let's see. I wish she had someone checking her posts before making them, but scream on. Exactly. I understand her anger, but I wish she had somebody to help her. Yeah, I really do. Just because, so her message stays strong and clear. Because I want her voice out there. I do. And judging by his suit, he can't afford the 950. I know, and he needs a hairdresser too, Liam. I know. It's a wonderful picture, isn't it? Yeah. You know what? It does make sense. I understand where Judge Almeida was coming, but you know how frustrated I was feeling when I saw only 950, so they couldn't put a bar. They couldn't put get the lawyers on the hook for what Scientology did. Maybe less lawyers would work for them, right? You know? Probably someone who knows that their licenses are at stake to practice. Yes, in answer to why did they drop their appeals? More than likely, right, Anna? That's what I was thinking myself, you know. I'm dubious about motivation for it all, Liam. I am. Hi, Titan. Nice to see you. Hmm. Reminds me of the people who want to stand up for their friend, not to be kicked out of the club after they obviously started the fight. Exactly. That does happen a lot, right, Liam? You see it in everyday life. We do want to pick up, like, our friends can be wrong, and we still, they were advocating for leniency. So I understand why people were pissed off, because these were forcible, violent events. We heard those of us that heard the testimony. It's hard not to say, absolutely, he deserves every minute of this. Every minute of this. When the disregard for another human being like that, their rights all taken away, everything like that, okay? Their rights taken away, they got to live with it for the rest of their lives. He didn't bat an eye at how they felt. And now you got 50 people advocating for leniency, and it's frustrating. I get it. But it's their right. And it happens in trials all over. Maybe not 50, but people stand up and give their statements. We don't always get the letters from behind the scene like this, you know? And famous people have a tendency to pull more weight in exactly. And I think that is what the advocacy groups and actual victims and people who are supporting the victims, I think that is what they're leaning towards, as to Ashton and Mila should have known better. Should have known better that they were going to get some heat. And maybe they did. And maybe they didn't care. Maybe they think Danny deserves the support. That's on them. Okay. Well, the groups are saying, and so are the victims, that your names mean something out there. Just by doing what you did, you took away from us. And unfortunately, it's true. They did. Because now it's a media sensational thing. It's everywhere. And what it's doing is taking away from the actual crime that happened, and taking away the fact that these were actual victims. Okay. And you are. I know you don't want to believe you are, by spreading all of this, but in a way you are. Okay. Now, some of the victims want this out there. They want Ashton and Mila attacked for this because they're upset that they did it. Yeah. Their statements are attacking towards Ashton and Mila, and they have a right to. Okay. Well, it's just making it all worse for everybody involved. It's, and even for the victims, you know. Annoys me. I have to waste time calming them while their mate is still exactly. The guy starts the fight, right, and then you have to calm down the friends and everybody else involved while he's still out there, like, causing more trouble that you got to fix. I feel for you, Liam. Yeah, I get that. Government sanctioned pistol whipping. I'll just leave it at that. Well, Aaron, there's a thought. Member for 3 months. Hey, Arnold. Zeno lives. Research flat teeth. No. They are absolutely taking away. Yes. And that's what I don't want to see that happen. At the same time, I support that they should be able to submit statements. I do think they didn't have to be the way they were. I do think it was kind of naive of them to think it wasn't going to get leaked. They are big celebrities. They work together. They're tied to Danny so closely. And that's the other thing I wanted to talk about. Who didn't send in a letter? Laura Pepper, Wilder, Topher Grace, Bree Schaefer, his assistant, Luke Watson, his best friend, who was there for one of the attacks. Remember, didn't want Danny to actually go near Jane Doe. Said, and Danny said, "No, I'll take care of her." He was there when she was getting in and out of the hot tub, and she couldn't control her body. And Danny said to him, "No, she's like a little sister. I'd never do anything to her." She says otherwise. Well, Luke Watson didn't submit a letter. Some of the people that were there every day to support him didn't either. Many people didn't. But 50 did, and that's a lot. It's not a death penalty, and it's not saying it's not a death penalty. True, but the fact was, as I covered earlier, Aaron, is that it's 15 to life times 2. And the statute in California for this particular crime that he's been convicted of, because it was forcible and because it was serial, there was more than one. The sentencing guidelines for that particular statute require 15 to life. Oh, okay, that's it. That's the max. And for each charge, if she had the choice of just doing the one, like 15 to life or less, she went 15 to life times 2. The statute says to run them one after the other, that each victim deserves their full sentencing guideline. And so that's what she did. Although the defense did petition right before a motion for leniency to say, please run them concurrent together, so he only gets 15 to life, stating that he was a father and he's got a 9-year-old daughter and that he's been good and done charity work. And that all could be true. It is true. He's married. He does have a daughter. He has contributed to charity. He has been a friend to other people. He's a mother. He has a mother and he has brothers and sisters. He's been a son and a brother, and he's had friends. Two things can be true at the same time. He's also a convicted serial rapist. When that Judge Almeida went with the law, she told them there was no statute to not go with what the sentencing guidelines were, and she was going to. It was warranted. 2 victims got guilty verdicts. So there were 2 15 to life sentences, which added together are 30 to life, which means that around 26 years with good behavior, he can apply for parole. Doesn't mean he'll get it. Just like anyone else. The little sister did make a nice glowing statement, the father is out there very upset because the timelines of the younger sibling and brother are way off. I mean, they're talking about stuff that he was gone well before they were divorced and everything, and that's not how it happened. and he was in contact with the family for years. But it just shows you how they twist things in their memories and how people see things in different ways. You know who taught me to fight? My older brother. I don't trust that little sister statement at all. And Zenu was a really good spaceship pilot. Yup. Wasn't Ashton married to Demi Moore when all this happened? Wonder if Demi speaks on it. I have not seen a statement from Demi, but I will tell you that she and Dustin are the ones who, she and Ashton rather, are the ones who created Thorn. They are the ones who put that foundation together, and he's been very active ever since. She was with him then when he was speaking to Congress and speaking on committees and all. He was active. No one can deny that he doesn't do advocacy. Mila Kunis also. Although the recent video that they did really didn't help because, like, they're out there acting like, they didn't say what they said, but they did. And they're saying they didn't mean to hurt anyone, and maybe they didn't. But they're going to have to take a little brunt of this because it is public now. But they should be mad at the people who made it public, actually. The defense, the people that asked, if they thought it was going to be private, that should be between whoever told them it would be private. Because the pushback is great. I don't think people should be canceled over it, but they can be held accountable. I mean, Chrissy's angry. She's really angry. And the other ones are hurt. And I don't blame them. I'd be hurt too. A lot of victims are hurt when they read stuff like that. But it doesn't mean you don't have the right to say that I knew the person different than you did. Because maybe they did. It didn't change his sentence. No one came forward and said it didn't happen, except for a couple of the letters do allude to the fact that it's all a conspiracy and that the jury was paid off or whatever. There's one handwritten letter in there that's like, ugh. Like, it does look a little. There are some letters that people just refuse to believe that Danny did anything wrong, but the majority are just saying he was a good person when I knew him. And of course, his family's going to run glowing letters of his participation, his brothers and his sisters saying how valuable they were to him, how he raised them, how he stepped up. It doesn't mean behind closed doors he wasn't the other. Two things can be true at the same time. And that is just my whole point of this whole thing. I've given you some links down below, along with the standard information on consent and things we need to do to change things as far as statute of limitations and how people can come forward with their charges. I still totally believe the verdict is just, and I stand with the victims. And I don't want them to be portrayed as angry, bitter, or vengeful. And that's why I'm just saying I can understand why some people are looking at the language that they're using and what they're doing and getting the wrong idea. So I ask everybody to slow down, look at all of the sides of it, look at all of the information, okay? And then try not to participate in a harmful way to this whirlwind, this firestorm that's going on of controversy in regards to it. I do hope the verdict stays. Sean Hawley has adamantly said that they are going to go for an appeal, that Scientology was brought into this case erroneously, and that should be enough to appeal. Sounds like shades of Phil Cohen. Remember, he brought up Scientology every day in the trial, But on that, I hope I gave you enough information. Down below in the description, I've got the links even to Ashton's testimony from the committee. Okay. And then you've got the link to Lauren Brooke, who shows the other interviews that show him to be like a little, well, he got clipped and it doesn't sound good. I will admit it just doesn't sound good. We do have to remember that. Here we go. Juju, thank you for that, because here's the point. Danny Masterson is guilty. Danny Masterson is the guilty party here and the bad guy. Okay. So even if you think that Ashton Kutcher and Mila are getting a bad rap, you still support the victims. Danny Masterson's the bad guy here. Okay. Not Ashton, not Mila, not Chrissy, not Jane Doe 1, Jane Doe 2. No one. Or 4 or 5. Remember, they came forward. and gave testimony. All right. None of the victims are the bad guys here. They're angry. Okay. And they may be behaving in ways that you say we wouldn't, or we're judging saying like we wouldn't do it like that. And that might be true, but we're not them. So we don't get to say. I'm not going to second guess that jury. There was enough there to convict, and I am comfortable with the conviction. I'm comfortable with the sentence. People say it's too much because the crimes were too old. There was a reason the crimes are that old. It's not like they got together after years and years and just decided they didn't like Danny Masterson. They've been working on this for years to get it to come to trial. They were pressured, harassed, kept back. Anyway, a lot more information than what people are just doing. Me too, Anna. I'll advocate for the victims. I will. I just don't want to hurt other people in the same process. You know what I mean? Like, let people look at all the facts. Go look at the other legal case and see. But if the LAPD thought that he obstructed the case, they would have charged him. It's not up to me to second guess the jury and the judge after all that evidence. Exactly. Exactly. Regardless. I get it. And thank you both. Thank you, everybody who was here. It is definitely one that makes you think about how, with the media coverage and everything like that, and to see how far things go. I understand why they get like that. I do. Well, please check out all of the links. Like I said, look at both sides of it. I gave you everybody who's got pretty much an opinion about it out there. Links to go. Look at the victims, what they're saying, you know. Look at what Mila and Ashton said. Look at what the media is poking at. Other people, lawyers, who are pulling up the evidence. And then remember that we had clear evidence of Scientology shenanigans going on. So don't forget that we may be all following into their hands right now by making this big whirlwind to take away from the fact that they created a climate in a culture where these kinds of crimes could be committed and not reported, supported and covered up. They helped create the monster in the situation that was Danny Masterson and the Jane Does. And they failed the Jane Does. They failed them. They were human with rights, the same as Danny, and they were treated less than. And they were told it didn't happen to them because it doesn't exist, because you can't go against Danny Masterson. Let's not forget that. Let's not forget what really happened. And let's let them have their justice and healing. We support the victims. They're going to try to twist it. Don't fall into their hands. That's all I got to say for tonight. I hope you all have a great evening, and I will be back tomorrow with Sarah Boone. If you can take some more, you can take some more, then that's what we're going to do. All right. All right. So let me just put this one on and hit my outro. Everyone have a good one. Thank you so much for being here. As always, I have free for questions on the back of the video. Please help the algorithm by sharing, and commenting if you have anything. I'm happy to answer questions. Any new members who came forward who haven't already sent me your Discord IDs, you are welcome to join the Discord. We'd love to have you. There's a lot going on there about all the cases too. Well, thank you all. Have a good night.